Hi there, this is Art for Introvert, and today we are going to get to the bottom of the TV show SpongeBob SquarePants philosophical ideas. It seems to be a giddy cartoon for children, and there's nothing to look for, yet the cartoon is not that simple. Let's have a look at the philosophical subtext at the core of Bikini Bottom and try to understand why SpongeBob is a way more complicated than it seems. The plot recounts the story of SpongeBob, his friends and colleagues, Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, and Plankton. Get ready to take a dive deep in the philosophy of the characters and figure out the real meaning of the series.
Are ya ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Let's start with SpongeBob, who lives with a pet sea snail named Gary in a giant pineapple. He is positive and energetic yet naive. He loves his friends and job. His attitude towards the world can be analyzed through the prism of Aristotle's philosophy. This ancient Greece thinker was an idea-monger of eudaimonia. Its key idea is that happiness is the main life purpose of a person. SpongeBob lives happily. According to Aristotle, he doesn't need any more as he already has enough. He is not interested in wealth, power, or authority. These won't make him any happier. Following the ideas of the Greek philosopher, SpongeBob strives to avoid extremes and behaves modestly. More than that, he tries to make others happy even if they don't really want it. But no one, even Squidward, can take offense to SpongeBob for it. Just like Aristotle, SpongeBob pursues happiness as the core value. Let's take a closer look. No matter what he does, he's always annoyingly happy. Short periods of sadness are replaced by a new outburst of enthusiasm. SpongeBob enjoys his life, and every moment of it brings happiness. He neither uses anyone nor causes harm on purpose. And according to Aristotle, happiness is the meaning and purpose of life. In other words, real happiness is a life goal and not a tool to fulfill other desires. In Aristotle's theory, happiness is defined by moderation in all things and the absence of extreme actions or desires. His best friend Patrick is a frivolous and starry-eyed resident of Bikini Bottom who lives for pleasure only. He doesn't want to deal with intellectual challenges. They make him feel sad and lonely. Such a philosophical concept is called utilitarianism, with John Stuart Mill being its main theorist. Here, any action is addressed from the perspective of pleasure it brings, and it doesn't mean that Patrick hardly cares about others or empathizes with them. On the contrary, Patrick always supports SpongeBob. According to Mill, the desire for pleasure doesn't mean avoiding moral values. SpongeBob and Patrick both strive for happiness, and the latter agrees with John Mill. Happiness is absence of suffering. So Patrick acts for the sake of universal happiness manifested in pleasure, yet Mill divided pleasures into higher and lower ones, with the latter being related to sensational activities. They are less valuable than the higher ones related to mental and moral activities. So Mill wouldn't support Patrick and has given up mental, intellectual pleasures. Squidward lives next door to SpongeBob and Patrick, and he would definitely find common ground with author Schopenhauer. Surprisingly, the German philosopher and the humanoid octopus have a lot in common. According to Schopenhauer, the world is divided into the world as will and the world as representation. Any person and an object belong to the world as will, yet live in the world as a representation. We tend to perform the will which is embodied in our desires. However, the flow of desires is endless, so one can never fulfill all of them. That's why our life is endless suffering. Life is a dream, an illusion, a prison, and there's only one way out: death. Now you see why Schopenhauer was a pessimist of the philosophical world. Think about Squidward. He perceived the world according to Schopenhauer's canons. Life is miserable and meaningless. Each action is useless since there's nothing we can do with the world. Squidward suffers more than anyone else without any particular reason, unlike Plankton. Suffering is a way of existence for Squidward and the world as a representation as it is. Schopenhauer passionately sought the way out of suffering, and thin path he found was art. Aesthetical experience breaks the circle of eternal suffering and allows it to merge with the initial world as will. It makes Squidward happy and harmonious for a few moments. Yet the real world is still here, waiting for him. A hidden meaning in Squidward's playing the clarinet is that, according to Schopenhauer, music is the highest form of art as it saves us from reality. Squidward understands it. SpongeBob and Squidward work at Krusty Krab, run by Mr. Krabs. He seems to be a typical capitalist, but it's not that simple. Let's recall Ayn Rand's philosophy of rational egoism. She emphasized her negative attitude towards any form of collectivism and exaggerates the idea of individualism. The moderate selfishness of Mr. Krabs proves to be beneficial both for him and the entire society. For example, he provides SpongeBob and Squidward with workplaces, and unlike socialism and its criticism of capitalism, Ayn Rand romanticizes entrepreneurism, turning a blind eye to the obvious problems of late capitalism. Mr. Krabs also pursues happiness, which for him consists in personal success. His most criticized qualities are an endless money hunting and selfishness, though these are not a curse but a blessing which makes him successful. He uses typical capitalistic means to force SpongeBob and Squidward work, and sometimes he even mocks them. The showrunners claim that it is his life purpose. Just like Ayn Rand, he believes that money is a source of good, yet it's been a life goal since the very beginning. There are not so many female characters with thoroughly elaborated outlooks in the series, and Sandy the Squirrel is the only one who has quite a distinct worldview. Her thoughts and actions are riddled with liberal feminism. She strives for gender equality, working within the framework of the current social system without breaking it down. She has a vivid individualistic personality, and she really achieved equality with men. Her image has a lot in common with the stereotypes about the residents of Texas, and it helps to highlight her independence in the man's world. As a scientist, she is actually smarter than most of the inhabitants of the bottom. The antagonist of the animated series, Plankton, would totally love Nietzsche's philosophy. He's the one who wants to overcome his nature and become a super plankton. His stirring spirit doesn't just fuzz around but really acts to achieve something. Plankton is the smartest guy in the bottom. He is ambitious and hardworking, willing to persuade his family that he can do more. A small-town plankton who dares to dream big and becomes the creator. He tries to fulfill his ideas actively but doesn't just daydream. I recounted a lot of different names in philosophical schools, and some of them might be new to you. Learn more philosophical ideas in our course, The Entire History of Philosophy from Ancient Times to the Present Day. The link is in the bio. Plankton is unsatisfied with his nature and does his best to overcome it. According to Nietzsche, a man is a rope over an abyss stretched between the animal and the superhuman. A human stage has to be left behind on the way to the stage of the superhuman. No resident of Bikini Bottom is willing to take the leap of trust more than Plankton. Right, he's selfish and irritating, yet sometimes he acts like SpongeBob's mentor, helping him to become stronger and wiser, though SpongeBob rarely takes his advice. Plankton is outraged by naive and overly soft SpongeBob, who seems to be seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. Being a hater of purposeless and meaningless energy, Plankton acts actively changing the world and himself. So he's the main character of the show now. Is it worth it leaving the characterless SpongeBob behind and taking the side of the creature that wants to become more than he was supposed to be? I would also like to draw your attention to the social structure of Bikini Bottom. A school of fish usually takes someone's side suddenly and thoughtlessly. The crowds are easy to control. Actually, what is a crowd or a mass? According to Ortega Y. Gasset, the mass is all which sets no value on itself, good or ill, based on specific grounds, but which feels itself just like everything. Anybody who is not like everybody, who doesn't think like everybody, runs the risk of being eliminated. The residents of Bikini Bottom are childish, and they act like a mass. They don't have an opinion, they are easily controlled by demagogic ideas of those who speak more confidently and loudly. They are subject to stereotypes and labeling, easy to set against an outcast, but they also easily take them back. Bikini Bottom is a mixture of capitalism, anarchy, and communism, yet it's difficult to identify the exact type of their society. One way or another, the characters strive for happiness. Some prefer kind yet naive actions like SpongeBob, some do via pleasure like Patrick. Squidward finds happiness in art and music, and Mr. Krabs in fulfillment of his egoistic desires. Plankton knows his happiness hides in overcoming his nature. Yet happiness is the key motif of the characters. The showrunners managed to show such diverse images, and each character, regardless of their degree of craziness, has their own truth. The truth is always simple. Happiness is unique for each person. Keep in mind that a person's freedom ends where another's begins, and using people as a tool to achieve the goal is immoral. Unfortunately, the residents of Bikini Bottom tend to forget about it, but we, unlike the inhabitants of Bikini Bottom, are humans able to choose properly the path to happiness. To learn more about different approaches toward happiness, check out our course, The Entire History of Philosophy from Ancient Times to the Present Day. The link is in the description box. If you want more philosophical videos, make thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.